Okay, here we go. Ready or not. So, I was thinking maybe, a lot of, I have my YouTube video. I talk about all kind of different things that I see where there's problems of different things. Sometimes, with different teachings, understandings, and things like that. Well, because I was raised in a mainstream, you know, what they call Bible Baptist or Bible believing Baptist, conservative, fundamental, Bible believing Baptist, straight laced all the way. And I'm from the Amazon jungle. I usually don't go into details of my, my who I am or where I came from or anything. I mean, I have, but not a whole lot. But I think it's about time for me to just say a little bit about who I am, where I'm from, and everything. So, in case anybody doesn't know, I am a missionary kid. I grew up in the Amazon jungle where the mosquitoes are so thick that you can rub your arm or your leg, and then all you're gonna see is like streaks of blood. That's how many mosquitoes there are. At times, sometimes when it gets bad. And I did get malaria one time. I did get malaria because I had a little problem with my bladder, slightly a slight rupture in my bladder, and what was supposed to go out of the body went into my bloodstream, and within hours I had a fever of like 100, and then it just kept on climbing. It went up to 102, 3, 4, 5. So I asked my dorm parent. I asked her what was the temperature. What was my temperature? She looked away and she didn't even say. She didn't even say what it was. She didn't tell me. Um, but it was as high as the thermometer went, 105, which is dangerous. Dangerous for the head not working. But you know, so she called the doctor. I mean, there was a doctor, a missionary doctor there at the time, and missionary doctor immediately gave me a shot of penicillin, brought my temperature down to normal, and could have saved my brain, saved my life, saved whatever. But anyways, and then of course, they went in to try and treat me, trying to figure out what was wrong with me and everything. And they figured out, well, we got the chills and the fever. It's probably malaria. So eventually, I went to the city, went to a clinic. They didn't Nothing was open by the time I got there, so I had to go to clinic instead of hospital, and they didn't have no pillows because in Brazil they don't have any pillows. So we begged and pleaded for a pillow. They gave me a pillow, and they gave us prescribed medicine. It's called it's a half and half Daraprim and chloroquine. Chloroquine comes from like tomato plants or something. Daraprim is a known malaria suppressant or whatever. But there was a combination of the both Daraprim and chloroquine that I suppose eventually helped me, to survive malaria. But I was sick for like a week. But I was so sick for a week. I had, I was going to school at the time, but I had to take another week just to recover from being sick for the week that I was sick for a week. So But that's who I am. I'm a missionary kid. Also, when I was 3 years old, I got bit by my pet dog, and he he disappeared for like a week or so. My brother found him. He followed my brother into the yard, and I'm 3 years old, and I remember every little detail. My brother comes in. The dog came in behind me. Hello, George. How you doing? Is this far to? Oh, sorry. Sorry, George. Yeah. So the dog comes in the yard. It wasn't my brother's dog. It was my dog. So the dog comes in. I reached down to pet it. My dog. He jumped. I'm 3 years old. He jumped up and bit me in the eye, my right eye. So, and I remember every detail. So they said, oh, everybody's, the dog might have rabies and everything. So they put me on a regimen. They gave me one shot every day for 50 days. Every day I had to take a shot. So being I was as small as I was only 3 years old. They gave me all the shots in my stomach, except for the last one. The last shot, they gave it to me in the arm because they said I was a big boy, and they were like debating put it in his leg, his arm, his legs, his arm. They put it in my arm because it said I was a big boy. Hello, Danielle, Dan Straight. God kept you around for a good reason. Yeah, I like to think so. So, so that's my background growing up in the Amazon. I also grew up in Kansas, not far from here, about 5 hours from here, driving. And my puppy jumped up and bit me on my nose. Yeah. So, but but then I'm trying to explain my background growing up in the Amazon because when you grow up in the Amazon and in the Midwestern United States too, you're like away from everything too. You're like out in the middle of who knows where. And so we came back, so something happened where my parents had to come back to the United States when I was 17. So I came back when I was 17, and here I am supposed to face the world when I'm 17, right? And of course, I did. I had no clue of anything. I wasn't like, and I'm in New Jersey. He came back. My dad came back to New Jersey. We lived in New Jersey. So here I am in central New Jersey, trying to make friends, church friends, and everything. It went okay. We went to a missionary home, a home for missionary people. Where they have missionary barrels and all this stuff. And that went okay. We made friends with people there. One family, one of the daughters married my brother eventually. Not right away, but I mean after several years or whatever. Another family was from SIM, Sudan Interior Mission. They had to go to Kenya because of the fighting and everything in Sudan. This was a long time ago too. This is like forever, way back in the day. And he was one of my best friends. I don't want to say his name, but he was one of my best friends. We had a little bit in common. He was from Africa. I was from the Amazon. He grew up in Kenya. It's called, American school in Kenya. I grew up in American school in the Amazon. But here I am in the middle of New Jersey, you know, wondering what to do, wondering what I can do, not knowing what to do. And just going through school. So I'm like ninth or 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, or whatever. Went through a Christian school. Presbyterian Christian school. What was his name? He was a radio personality, but he was a Presbyterian preacher. But he had a Christian school, and we went to the Christian school, and they taught us stuff. So okay, there we go. From the Amazon jungle to the brick jungle of Newark. Yeah, that's basically about it. So yeah, right. So I'm here. I'm going. So we moved. We went to another church. We went to a church in central New Jersey. Well, it was still central New Jersey, but it was like near Cherry Hill. I won't say exactly where, but it was near Cherry Hill. And Cherry Hill's the more the city that's more known, anyways. So we went to this church near Cherry Hill, and there, I mean, I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to learn how to survive and everything, And so you make friends in the church, mind you, making friends in the church still, and some of them not so good. You beat the odds and graduated high school in Newark. Well, maybe I didn't get there yet, but I'm still in Cherry Hill, the school near Cherry Hill. We went to the church near Cherry Hill, a school near Cherry Hill, and I graduated from the school in Cherry Hill, which was another story. I don't want to get into it because I'm a little bit special myself, But even though I think I'm somewhat intelligent, I'm a little bit special too. But so it was an ordeal trying to graduate because I'd already been, well, I'm going into it. I already been left behind a couple of years, anyways, and so they wanted to leave me behind another year. I said, no way, I'm out of here. I just got in my car, took off. I'm a senior in high school, mind you. Senior in high school, like 19, 18, 19, whatever it was. And I just got in my car, took off, and started driving because that's my favorite pastime to do is just drive. And that's relieving for me. I like to drive. So here we go, Cherry Hill South. There we go, Cherry Hill South. But I guess it isn't too far from Trenton, so you could call it Central. The Christian school I went to, you might know, the Presbyterian preacher. It's a radio personality. It was, I don't want to say it was MacArthur. I forget his name. He was a infamous radio personality. They said he used to drive like 80 miles an hour and stuff like that. But anyways, um, it wasn't MacArthur. It was somebody, but it was the same kind of Irish, Scottish, whatever kind of name it was. And it was his school we went to, the Presbyterian school near Trenton. It was like on the road to Trenton, but the school was like the city before you get to Trenton or something like that. So that's where I went to the Christian Presbyterian school. So then I'm trying to survive in New Jersey. And of course, New Jersey is not a good place. In fact, my what do you call him, the youth pastor, the youth pastor, he was a great guy. He had a nice family, everything. He left New Jersey when he saw the state I was in, what I had become going through the church and the school in New Jersey. He he saw what I had become, and he took off with his kids. He said, "I'm getting out of here." He went to Delaware or somewhere, someplace. He says, "I'm getting out of this place." It was pretty funny. But I mean, it wasn't funny, but it is what it is. Spiral tape. There you go. I had a mate from New Jersey. He was inevitably called Tony. Yeah. Anyhow, good evening from Somerset County, England, and God bless all there, all here. I just came back from England just a week or so ago. I was visiting Nottingham. I was visiting Nottingham, and then I visited. We ran around England too a little bit. A little bit. I mean London. Ran around London for a day or so, and Nottingham. I live in New Jersey my whole life. I can't find the I can't find the exit. Well, you're you're anchored there right now, Dan, for a little bit. so so yeah, you gotta be firm. You gotta hold strong. Hang in there. You gotta hang in there. Is what you gotta do. Yeah, I took off whenever I saw them building hospitals in China. It was like 2020 February, January and February. They were building hospitals in China, and people would go in the front door, and they'd be taken out the back door. Go in the front door, be taken out, and I saw these things. They're just building hospitals frantically. People go in the front door, and they take them out the back door. But so I saw this. I said, I'm out of here because this pandemic is if it's as bad as what it seems. It's going to hit New Jersey hard and New York. Tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. It's going to hit this area, the East Coast. It's going to hit it really bad. So I said, I'm out of here. So I took all my vacation, came to Missouri. I mean, true story. I'm not making it up. True story. Took all my vacation and then took all my sick time. Then they gave me COVID time, and then I went back and I retired. That's a long story short. But anyways, so I retired after working 30 years, mind you, 30 years in Newark Airport. I retired. I retired. I was 30 years in February or something, right? So so I got my plaque and I got everything, 30-year plaque and everything, and the retirement and everything. But I haven't retired officially with the Social Security yet because I'm only 65. I have to get 66 and so many months, I think 7 months or something like that. So it's be like a year and a few months, I'll be retired officially, with Social Security. But anyway, so I'm trying to survive in New Jersey, and so you got to make some friends, right? You got to make some allies, make some friends. Figure that is. The only thing was my friends and allies were all like, well, we had several options. We had the what they called the geeks. The geeks were into science. I was a little bit geekish. I was but there's a pretty close connection between the geeks and the freaks. Because a lot of the freaks are pretty smart too, but they just think they're better than the geeks or something. Because maybe half the time maybe they are. But so there was the geeks, the freaks, and the jocks. I'm not making this up, and I'm not Joe Biden either. I'm not making. True story. I'm not making it up. So, so I chose between the geeks, the freaks, and the jocks, and I kind of settled on the freaks because they were nice to me. They were like friendly, and they were intelligent too. A lot of them were like really bright, sharp, intelligent, and everything. So that's where I hung out with it was the freaks because this is an era after the hippie. This is like way after hippies. There weren't any more hippies, but there was the geeks, the freaks, and the jocks. So I kind of hung out with the freaks. So they became like my friends. We hung out there. We did what whatever they did. Know. So, uh, so anyways, um, it is what it is. You try to survive. You know, but I lived like 3 years like that, and then I got convicted. I got convicted. It was, from the Bible, Word of God, and everything. So what I did was I I said I repented. You know, after 3 years, I repented, and so I spent like a whole year just reading the Bible. I just read the Bible, through the Bible, through the Bible, through the Bible. Just read the Bible, and then after that, about a year, I enrolled to go to school in Moody Bible Institute. So I went to Moody Bible Institute, and I learned. I majored in like missionary work because I was a missionary kid. I was majored in missionary kid. This is. I mean, it might sound tedious, but this is all very important. This is all who I am. Very important. So I majored in missions. Halfway through, or almost halfway through, I I changed my major. My major, instead of majoring in missions, I majored in Jewish missions. Because what happened was when I first got there at Moody, and it's Sunday morning, and it's time for everybody to go to church. So everybody goes out, and there's a whole bunch of buses coming by saying, "Go to church, go to church." All the different churches have the buses come by. So this van came by, and they were saying like, "Oh, come in, come in, come in the van. Let's go to church, go to church." And they sounded pretty nice. They sounded nice, like nice people and everything. So I jumped in the van, and I went to a Messianic Jewish congregation, and it was uh, it was called the Olive Tree up in Northbrook, Illinois, north of Chicago. So so I was there for like a year and a half or whatever, and then so my school work didn't go as planned. I was like, things weren't going so well for me in school because, of course, I'm a little bit slow. Because when I took a course on the Gospel of John, and I outlined the Gospel of John. You know what an outline is? When you outline the major points, like bullet points or whatever, you made an outline of the Gospel of John. So it took me forever to do it. So I'm taking this time, and then I tried to play soccer too. So I didn't have time to play soccer, so I dropped out of soccer. So I'm trying to do that. They give you all kind of books. They throw all kind of stuff at you. They throw you books at you. You got to expected to read all these books. There's no way you can read all these books they throw at you. You got to like speed read them, look through them, or read cliff notes or whatever. But this, it wasn't for me. It's like I like to take my time. I like to think about it. I like to see everything what it's saying. That's what I was doing with the Gospel of John. And we had this, and the teacher, the Bible study teacher, was very good, but he would stutter quite a bit, and he was black, but I liked him so much because he was sincere, and he was a good Bible teacher, and he would be up there and saying the about the ramifications. So I learned that word. I learned what the word ramification is in the school. Hello, Dana. How you doing? So I learned what the word ramification was, and that became one of my favorite words. Ramifications. I have a imitation of what's his name, Barack Obama, but I'm not going to do it right now. But it's, It's a stuttering imitation, but I'm not going to do it. I guess it's political and it's it's irrelevant to the discussion and everything that we have here. But anyways, um, yeah. So I like I like to take my time. I like to think about it. I like to study it very well. I got to learn it very well. I don't like to just like learn stuff superficially. I like to just know everything about it and make sure I know this subject good. Make sure I know it good. So I ended up dropping out. So started working as a landscaper um, for a guy that was at the church at the Olive Tree Messianic congregation. It's they're Jewish believers that believe in Jesus. This guy was German, but his wife was Jewish, and so he hired me into his company, which is called a landscaping company. Turned out, I found out later that I was making less than the Mexican immigrants were making. They're making more than me. But anyways, it's for a good purpose, for a good reason, and it's for a ministry, you know. But anyways, so I was working for landscaping in Chicago, well, 1 year, year and a half, almost 2 years or whatever, and then it hit me, and that's when I became schizophrenic. It's when I became totally, absolutely schizophrenic. RAM application ramifications. Yeah, ramifications. So so and it terrified me. It terrified everybody else too, and everybody else is wondering what's going on. So they took me to the hospital. This Jewish lady, the wife of the guy that hired me, they they took me. They said, let's go for a ride. Famous last word. Let's go for a ride. Right? It's, see, it's great that your work and people like you are beginning to gain traction. It was creation research, YouTube, that got me involved in the subject. I only found you recently. Oh, that's great to hear. Spiral tap. So so they got concerned. Of course, I didn't know what was wrong, what was going on, because I had like hallucinations, visual and sound. What do you call that? Audio and visual hallucinations, both, and with delusions. So they took me to. They said, "Let's go for a ride." I said, "Oh, great! We're going to go out to eat." And finally, somebody's going to pay attention to me, recognize me, which is has something to do with this, with the subject of this video. So finally, somebody's going to recognize me for who I am. We're going to, take me out to to a restaurant, and we'll have a chat and talk, have a good time. Hello, Iron Man. Oops, I pressed the wrong. Schizophrenia runs in my family, and it's nothing to laugh about. You have to be very careful with schizophrenia. It's torment. It's literal torment, and it's not funny. You're right. It's not funny at all. But unless unless you, I mean, if you recover from it, then maybe it might be funny. But while you're schizophrenic, there's nothing funny about it. It's audible. Audible. There's Iron Matt. So they took me to the doctor, and then I was like, I was all upset and everything. I was like, here I was. I expected like they're going to take me out of the restaurant. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk. And they take me to this hospital. So I said, oh, all right, whatever. So they took me to the hospital. They took me in to see this doctor. And previously, I had talked to the wife of my boss, uh, the the wife of the landscaper, I had previously I talked to her because she was asking me questions, and then I was speaking gibberish, and I was talking all kind of nonsense and everything. So that's when they said, "Let's go for a ride." So it took me to the hospital. I talked to the doctor. They said, "Tell him what you think," or whatever. Tell him what. So I repeated a whole bunch of gibberish and everything, and thought, you know, and so you have great information I have not seen elsewhere. I would think that either groups want to support you, but either way, keep going for it, mate. Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. So, so I tell him this, and then he goes out of the room or whatever, and then they come back to me and say, you got two options: either take the medication or go back home to New Jersey. So I actually said, I literally said, what kind of choice is that? I said, what kind of choice is that? And they said, what do you mean, what kind of choice? I said, what kind of choice is that? Of course, I'm going to go home to New Jersey. I'm not going to take the medication. I'm going back to New Jersey. So my roommate in Chicago, the one that gave me room and board, uh, who was going to the same church, he offered it. He was wealthy. I'm not going to say who he was. He was wealthy, and he offered to take me back to New Jersey. So, so I said, so I went back to New Jersey. He took me back to New Jersey, and hallucinating the whole way. You know, there's all kind of funny angels flying with the airplane and everything. Of course, I'm laughing after. It's not funny while at the time, but you know, it is. You know, schizophrenia is um, affectionately regarded. These hallucinations, these people, these things that speak and talk and whatever, they're regarded by schizophrenics as affectionately. They're affectionately regarded um, by schizophrenics sometimes, but it's like a back and forth thing. It's affectionate, then it's torment. Then it's affectionate, and it's torment. It's good, and this is bad. It's back and forth, back and forth. That's what schizophrenia is associated with, like going back and forth. You know. Anyways, I'm happy you've overcome this horrible condition, jungle jargon. It is a miracle. It is. I consider it a miracle, and I'm going to say how I overcame it too, because a lot of people don't believe it, and they're not able to do the same thing. Iron Matt from somewhere. So we landed in the airport, Newark Airport, mind you. Everything is so ironic, and I could go on. I mean, I'm only just starting to tell the story. I could go on and on. We land in Newark Airport, and we're walking through the halls of Newark Airport, and my friend who brought me back to New Jersey, says he stops at we're walking through a corridor where you can look down at people working. He stops there and says, he's looking down. I just keep it walk. I just kept walking. I'm saying, I'm not paying attention. It's like, what's this guy doing? Looking out the window. So he calls me back. So I go back. And he's looking down at the people working down there. They were like mechanics and everything working down there. There's a guy, with a tow truck working down there. He says, you can do that, right? So yeah, I can do that. Of course I can. Because I had talked to him before about being a mechanic for him in some kind of venture that maybe he might have had, right? I strongly believe that the psychotropic medications make people even worse, which is another problem. It compounds the problem, makes the problem worse, because people that get on medication, then they gotta get off the medication for maybe another medication or something. But when they get off the medication, it causes withdrawals, which is could be even worse. It could be, they could be suicidal or all kinds of crazy stuff. It's really bad. It's really bad, and I'm glad I never had to take any medication. I know people who have taken medication, and it's horrible too. So so he looks down there and says, "Oh, you can do that work." I said, "Yeah, of course I can." Little did I know, or he know, or anybody knew that would be my job for 30 years. You know, in several years, a number of years. That wasn't the first job I got, but that was the job I had. That very job is the job that I had for 30 years that I'm retired from. So then I go back. He takes me back home to New Jersey, central New Jersey, where we were. The house is no longer there, but I'm there. And I'm still hallucinating. I'm trying to figure out what my problem is. I'm thinking, gotta be something I'm doing is wrong. It's got to be something I can do to stop this torment, stop this. It's day and night. It's 24 hours a day and night torment. So I got a job at Great Adventure, and I'm working at Great Adventure. If anybody knows Six Flags Great Adventure, Six Flags in New Jersey, it's a big company and everything. It's like a money machine. So they just take in the money, and of course my mom worked there. I worked there, and whenever you work there, you get like these vouchers, and you can like go on rides and do this and that and the other thing. So yeah, so I worked there. I worked on the wooden roller coaster. I walked the wooden roller coaster track like that, and you help, and then you help people get into the roller coaster, and then you send them on their way down the roller coaster. That's why you have to walk the track, because you're sending people on their way that you could send them on. It's very, very important. Make sure the track is all there and everything. And so, so I was still hallucinating. And then break time would come, and I'd be hallucinating. And I don't know if I should talk about. Well, there's this one girl. She kind of like befriended me because I was not because she was pretty or good looking, or you know the men would be hitting on her all the time. So she kind of like sat with me because I wasn't hitting on her, and I'm still hallucinating. I'm still okay. So I'm trying to explain to her. Say, you don't know what's happening. But anyways, so so then I quit. I quit or whatever happened, and then but I joined. I figured I'm going to join the army because a lot of missionary kids don't know what the world is like. Don't have any experiments in the real world because I'd been sheltered my entire life. Sheltered in church, on the mission field, in the mission schools, in the Christian schools. And the only time I got out was in high school, where I met the geeks, the freaks, and the jocks, and my friends were the freaks. But anyways, um, which might explain the episode that I had too, because you smoke, and some people are susceptible to becoming schizophrenia when they smoke, and and who knows what other people are seeing and hearing, anyways. But anyways, so so I joined the army, uh, and but by that time I learned not to be speaking gibberish because you had to go through a health exam, right? So you go through this health exam, and I was physically fit. I figured, all right, I'll pass this no problem. So I just didn't speak any gibberish to them. I just figured out by that time, actually, I'm not going to speak any gibberish to them because they're not going to. Because I didn't even know what I had yet. I didn't even know it was called schizophrenia. I didn't know what it was. I just knew something was wrong. But anyways, I still had to try to get a job and survive. So I figured I'll get some experience, mechanical experience. Because I like mechanics, and I'll just get a job as a mechanic in the army because I had already worked in high school. I worked in part, it was like a co-op thing. I worked at a army reserve. We were packing wheel bearings for the army reserve, and so I said, okay, that was fun. So I'll just become a mechanic in the army. So that's what I did. Signed up for 63 whiskey, which is a wheeled vehicle repair person, which works on Jeeps, 5 tons, whatever, all the wheeled vehicles. See, probably from SFT. So we worked at everything, and so then I got my training. It was Aberdeen, Maryland. After Fort Jackson, South Carolina, basic training. Aberdeen, Maryland. Then about a year later, I go to Kentucky for a year, Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I'm there at Fort Knox, Kentucky for a year, which was all right. It was okay. They had like another training ground or whatever for tanks were running around and everything. But I could tell you a whole bunch of stories there too. But after a year at Fort Knox, we went. They sent me to Germany, which was almost the real reason why I joined the army, because I thought, oh, there's a chance I could go to Germany, and I want to go to Germany. So, so I went to Germany for 2 years while I was in Germany. After 1 year, I found out I went to England, watched the documentary. So I watched this documentary, and there was these schizophrenics on there talking all this absurd nonsense and stupid stuff and seeing and hearing stuff. And then it dawned on me. Then I realized, oh man, that's what I have. That's what I had is schizophrenic. Because what happened was, while I was in the army, I don't want the army to take credit for this, but while I was in the army, I'm thinking, I got to do something. There's got to be something I can do to stop this hallucination, these delusions, the hallucinations, these audio and visual hallucinations and everything. So I got this idea because I had been to a Bible study. I had been to a Jews for Jesus Bible study back in Northbrook, Illinois, with Jan Moskowitz, who has now passed away, but he was there, and he was teaching this Bible study. And he said something. He said something that didn't sit right with me. I just thought he was a little bit too arrogant or whatever. So I had to go speak my mind to him. So I went and spoke my mind and talked about this and that. And while I'm ranting and raving and going off on this and that and the other thing, the hallucinations literally like went off into the background. The hallucinations went like, they were like hiding off in the tree. And I thought that was so strange. The hallucinations, they were hiding, hiding from. They went off in the background, and then after a while, they would come back. After I finished, you know, talking to Jan Moskowitz, they came back like before. So I'm in the army. I'm thinking, wow, that was weird. What would happen? What would happen if I just ignored the hallucinations, the audio and vision. What if I just ignored them and acted them like they're not there, not even there? What would happen? So that's what I did. I just started, and it was in the army, and it was like after 2.5, 3 years. And by the time I had gone to England, I was like recovering, but I still felt that I could have recurrence. And by the time I got out of the army, which was 86, I was a little bit more confident of my recovery, that it wouldn't, as long as I just ignore the hallucinations, they lose interest because they lose their power. They literally lose their power when you ignore them. So it's like it's not going to surprise you. It's not going to scare you. It's not going to do anything to you if you just ignore them. You know, they just kind of lose interest and they go away. So that's what happened. That's what I did. That's what happened. So anyway, um, I want to backtrack a little bit because I am an Army veteran. I was there in 1985. Uh, if anybody knows what happened in 1985, while I was there, it was the end of April 1985. Chernobyl blew up. So Chernobyl blew up, and there's radiation going off, and they're trying to keep it quiet. They're trying to not to tell anybody, but this radiation is going all over through Scandinavia, all over Europe, and everything. And if I'm not real mistaken, it was like May 1st, they made us go marching in the rain. We never marched for any reason while I was there in Germany. And in 1985, like about May 1st, they made us go marching in the rain. And I'm thinking, don't they know that Chernobyl just blew up and there's radioactive particles coming down in the rain? Don't they know this? So we're marching in the rain because we never marched for any reason, and now we're marching in radioactive rain for whatever reason. So, so I try to make light of the situation I'm singing. Because there was a song a couple years or a little bit before that that was said, "I'm a radioactive, I'm a radio." So I'm singing, "I'm a radioactive," and everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy or something. But anyways, it probably was. But anyways, long story short, I am a veteran, and I did get rained on by radioactive rain for some crazy reason while I was in Germany, like on May 1st, around there. And I looked at the clouds because now they have animations of the clouds of radiation. May 1st went right over the area, and it was a cloud of rain right over the area where I was, where we were marching in the rain. And turns out I got skin growths on me, on my head, and not just that. It goes down to your thyroid, and so now I'm treating that. Actually, everybody's saying I got to go to the VA and tell them and get treated for it properly. But I've been trying. I've been using. It's one of the main reasons I've been using supplements is because um, I'm trying to, you know, fix any cancer or whatever. But this is a specific cancer. It's a slow growing cancer, obviously, because I've had it for like 15, 20 years. The same problem with the thyroid. I can't hardly swallow. But I just found a treatment where I'm treating it with bee venom, and bee venom seems to be the only thing that attacks the cancer, and it doesn't hurt the normal cells. I mean, it makes them swell up. It'll make the normal cells swell up, but but it kills the cancer. So I'm taking the medication, the supplement internally and externally on the lesions that I have from the radioactive fallout and everything with it. And when it starts getting better, I'm going to go to the VA and say, look what you guys did. But I don't want to. The thing is, I don't want to trust the people that gave me the problem. I don't want to trust them for the cure. You know, I know it's not the same people, but let me see. What do we got here? Uh, this is great. You overcame with his horrific drugs. Yeah, Chernobyl happened in 19. It was 1985, April of 1985, if I'm not mistaken. And because I got out of the army in 1986. Pretty sure it was 1985, but I think it was April of 1985 because that's what the video said. But I got out of the army in 1986, the end of 1986. Or it might have been 1986, but that's when I got out of the army. That's when I left Germany. Was like towards the end of the year of 1986 is when I left Germany. Anyways, I was there in Germany getting rained on, and I was. I mean, that's most people probably weren't exposed to the radiation, but if you're walking in the rain that has the radioactive fallout in it, you're going to be exposed to it. No question about it. But anyways, it was. I had another one on my head, and it went away because the barber stabbed it with his comb or something, and I guess it was the disinfectant or something that made it go away. It went away. So I'm thinking, okay, it's got to go away. There's got to be something to make it go away. So I'm trying all this different stuff to make it go away. The only thing I found so far is this bee venom toxin, whatever it is, that works. But and and it does work. It's going down. It's getting smaller, and when it gets under control a little bit more, I'll just go to the VA and tell them, say, look what you guys did. Not them, but you know what I mean. Uh, let's see, 1986. I could be mistaken, or maybe the video was mistaken. The one I watched, I don't know. Maybe it was 86. But anyways, I was there in April of 86 and 85. Uh, will you control a free fall where a girl got her hair caught and died? Urban legends at the Great Adventure. Were what will you? Was I in control? Free fall where a girl got her hair. There were some accidents. I don't. There was. I was only there for like 1 year, or one half a year or summer or whatever it was, and there were no. I can't remember. I mean, there was accidents, but I can't remember a girl. I mean, it sounds familiar, but yeah, there was. I think there was a girl that got her hair cut or something. That sounds familiar, yeah. But I was only there for like a year or a half a year or whatever. Eat apricot seeds. Yeah, I tried that too. Kent Hovind has a friend who cured his stomach cancer doing that. Yeah, I tried that too. I was eating apricot seeds. I still have apricot seeds, but I mean maybe I'll just eat some of them too. Come to think of it, but it didn't seem to work or do anything. Data says it's 26 April 1986. Uh, and if that's the case, I was there in Germany, and maybe it was May 1st when the cloud was hovering over Germany. You can watch the video. It was like May 1st. It was after the place blew up. Okay. YEC Batman has some incredible knowledge of natural holistic cures for cancer, and he loves to help people. Yeah, well, that's good. Um, yeah, I could use all the help I get. I eat them when I get apricots. Okay. Yeah, I still have some apricot seeds, um, and maybe I'll try that, do some of them, or eat some of them while I'm at it too. Because Beckel eats them too. Beckel says they're good, you know. But anyways, so anyway, I get, I'm trying to tell my life story, who I am, and the main thing is that I'm a missionary kid, didn't know what to do, joined the army, and it was interesting. It was a good experience for the most part, but there was a lot of time. The only thing I didn't like about the army is just like there's a lot of wasted time. You just sit around, do nothing. It's like you don't feel like I could be doing something important right now. You just sit around and wait. So I left after 4 years. I left in 1986. I joined 82. I left 86. It was like the fall or something. Okay. I'll have you in my prayers. There you go. That's my name. So, and I thank you for that too. I mean, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, and everything else too. So, I guess on to the subject matter of the video is that you know a lot of people might not know who I am, so I got to explain a little about who I am or what I am or whatever, and maybe people will be more sympathetic or understanding or want to listen more or because I do know a few things, and I don't say things just out of you know on the spur of the moment or just because all of a sudden a thing seems like a good idea. I've been around for a while. I'm 65 years old, and if there's something I'm talking about, if something that I say is important, it might very well be important, and it probably is. And if not, I want to know about it. But you know, I think that people should at least listen to what I have to say, whatever I have to say, especially in regard to some of these matters. I mean, these are important things. The 16 grandsons of Noah are the progenitors of every ancient civilization that we know of. I mean, this is very important. If somebody wants to be a scientist or something, they have to understand our known human history, that we are all direct descendants from one of the 16 grandsons of Noah. You take a genetic test, and it's not just a fad that I have to study up on genetic haplotypes. This is something serious. This is a serious thing. That's why you have to go through methodically and seriously connect absolutely which haplogroup is which, because it's important. And that's why the Cohen modal haplotype is so important. And what's the Cohen modal haplotype? It's J1P58. Now, J1 is also Arabic too, but Levi was one of the sons of Israel. So the J1P52 is not only a descendant of Levi, but a direct descendant of Aaron, Moses' brother. Because everybody claiming to be Moses' brother, the only spike of any significance at all is J1P58. Not the I, not the E, not the J2, not any other spike. They're all down lower. The only spike that goes up like 50% positive or almost 50% is the J1P58. So that positively identifies the descendants of Levi, who's the son of Israel, Jacob, who's the son of Abraham, who's the son of Eber, the son, and who's descended from Arpachshad. I mean, not, you know, there might be some gaps in there, but that's what it is. Okay, our experiences can help people for sure. Yeah, and I try to help people, but doctors, for some reason, doctors don't even want. They're afraid to talk to me. It's almost like whenever I try to have a discussion with somebody, people are afraid to talk to me or something. Like they're avoiding me like a plague or something. I don't know. I heard Rabbi Jonathan Kahn talking about the direct genetic Cohen line back to Aaron. Funny you mentioned Jonathan Kahn. I was a member of his church. I played in the music group for many years. I played the trumpet in Jonathan Kahn's church or temple or Messianic congregation for many years. And he does talk about he is a descendant of he does have apparently. I mean, I don't think he would talk about it. I don't think he would talk about it if he himself didn't have that colon-modal haplotype J1P58, because he probably wouldn't even talk about it. But he is a descendant of Aaron. He is a Kohen. He's a legitimate priest of Israel, and that is a wow. That is a wow. That's a big wow. Yeah, he's talked about being a Kohen. Yep. So yeah, and so I know all you know. Paul Wilbur, Marty Getz. I I know them. They know me. We played together and stuff like that. But for whatever it's worth. Anyways, and I mean, the Jewish Messianic congregations sometimes tend to be a little bit charismatic. Jonathan Kahn tries to be a little bit more conservative. He's not as he criticizes charismatic, things people do and stuff like that. If anybody, for what it's worth, if anybody wants to know, watch his latest video about Yom Kippur. It's incredible. All of his things are incredible. They're all incredible. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. I used to sit there every week and in the congregation and listen to every one of his sermons. What I'm saying? And they're all incredible. I mean, and 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 we all love him. Everybody there who goes to Beth Israel, who attends there. Even people that people give all kind of testimonies. They came from across the world just to see him, and he's such a blessing and everything. There's a lot of story there, a lot of significance there. So anyway, um, yeah, the colon-modal haplotype is very important, and that identifies J as being a descendant of Arpachshad. Now, connected to J is another haplotype or haplogroup. It's an I that branches off from J, right? Now that I'm pretty sure, I believe, is the descendants of Dan, because everywhere they went, Danube, Denmark, Sardinia, they named it all Dan, right? Sardan means Prince Dan. Denmark, Danube, and there's a whole bunch more names too besides that. But anyways, those are all areas where there's an I haplogroup. That I haplogroup is the one that I happen to have. I got the I1M253. So somehow I traced one time my specific lineage from the Northern Alps. So from the Northern Alps, they went down the Rhine River, which is due north. They went down the Rhine River up to wherever, either the Anglo-Saxons or the Vikings, and they crossed over because my haplogroup is known. Well, the C. I'm a D, whatever it is, a D set. I'm a separate D group. The Vikings are a separate C group, and so I'm not actually a Viking, but I may have gone over with the Vikings, either that or the Anglo-Saxons, just going up through Europe and into Scotland, where my father's ancestors are from, Scotland. I traced the lineage all the way back to Edinburgh, Scotland. Anyway, Denmark's around New Zealand too. I got Denmark's in New Zealand. There we go. Wow, that's nice. Okay. Thanks for the stream. I feel like I know you better. Yeah. Yeah, I, I thought that maybe because I usually don't talk about myself a whole lot, even though I do, but I figured I'd try to explain a little better who I am. Maybe, people will be more understanding, or maybe people will pay more attention or listen better to, to what I'm trying to say or something. Anyway, so that's one thing. Another thing, what's my other pet peeve? Astrophysics, cosmology. That's always been science. That's always been my favorite thing. And when I'm when I'm observing in space, where they got what they call superluminal motion, and they measure this thing going 7 times the speed of light. To me, that rings a bell. It raises a red flag, rings a bell. Yeah. Crickets pouring rain on the East Coast. Yeah, we had rain just passed by here. Rain just passed by. Shalom, Matt, Sandy. Rain just passed by here, and now crickets are chirping. Yeah. See, I'm at Dan, Sandy. So in cosmology, they have these observations of things going faster than expected. Always faster than everything's faster than expected. Everything's bigger than expected. And to me, that rings a bell because they're not using the correct measures of time and distance to be able to calculate what the speed is. Because the farther away you get from the center mass of the center of the galaxy, which is what a superluminal motion from shooting out from the center of a galaxy is, the farther away you get from the center, the more the measures of time and distance are going to change. It's like aren't these people thinking? Aren't these people even thinking? Like, where are these brilliant scientists and stuff? And how can they publish a paper saying, "Oh, the measurement was 7 times the speed of light"? And then they try to explain it, say, "Oh, it's an illusion." Well, of course it's an illusion. Of course it looks like it's going 7 times the speed of light according to our measures of time and distance. Of course, but then they say, "Well, it's because the thing is shooting our way, and because it's you have to add the speed of the the jet with the speed of light. But wait a minute. If you do that, the maximum you could possibly get, even if you could, which is contrary to special relativity and stuff, anyways, even if you could only get twice the speed of light, not 7 times the speed of light. And they're measuring 7 times. Hello, YEC. They're measuring 7 times the speed of light. So there's something wrong with their measuring, right? It's because they're using our measures of time and distance onto the rest of the universe. Now the thing is that, and I actually said something to Arvin Ash and this other guy, and they're saying what? And I said, yeah. It's like, well, Arvin Ash said something about the matter and the mass and everything, and I'm saying that the farther away you get from matter, the what I said was, without matter, you're not going to have any contracted measures of time and distance. You're not going to slow down time. You're not going to have any contracted measures of distance. And then he said, what? And so I explained to him, and then he didn't answer back. And then this other guy, Fraser Kane, I said something to him too. I have to say something to get his attention, and then he'll disagree with it, and then I come back and try to explain it. Then he'll come back and answer back. But this Fraser Kane guy said you need a reference for that. Oh, you don't have a reference for that? I said, it's general relativity. It's you want a reference for gravitational lensing. You want a reference for the fact that in an Einstein cross, you have different points of light that are all the same origin, is the same event, explosion, but that some of them arrive years apart from each other. You're going to tell me that light is traveling all at the same speed? No, light does not travel at the same speed. It depends on the frames of reference that it's traveling through. Whether the frames of reference are small and compacted, where there's more frames of reference, it's going to travel slower. Where there's frames of reference are spread out between time and distance, it's going to travel faster. And that is exactly what a lens is. If you uh, shine light through a lens, the thicker part is going to slow down the light, and the thinner part the light's going to pass through faster. That's exactly what a lens is. And hello, shalom, rebuke and reprove. It's exactly what a lens is. So anyways, I explain, and they don't answer back. They can't answer back. The best Fraser King could say was that I didn't have a reference, but he's supposed to be a science promoter. He says he's not a scientist, but he's a science promoter. And Arvin Ash, I don't know, he might be a scientist, but he's a science promoter too. But they don't actually answer back because they don't want to look bad in front of their peers, right? But I still try to get them to respond to me, and sometimes they do, which is something I like to do, to get their attention, especially when there's errors in stuff that they're thinking. So this thing with the breakup of the continents, I think, is important too, because how in the world are you going to break up the continents when the fossils line up and the sediments line up? How can you break that up before the global flood and they still line up? How is that possible? And not only that, you have the glacial striations, which are all going from south to north, South America, Africa, India, Australia, on top of the bedrock, which AI corrected me. It's a bedrock where the glacial striations is. You have glacial markings, and it's unmistakably the direction of travel is understood. But wait a minute, you have glaciers in India, you have glaciers in Australia, you have glaciers in Africa and South America, like all moving away north, north in South America, north in Africa, north in India, north in Australia. Well, that can only mean that they were all connected at the South Pole at the time to even have glaciers. After the global flood deposited the sediment layers. So you have the deposition of the sediment layers, you know, 6 mega sequences or however many are in those areas. And on top of that bedrock, you have glaciers forming after the global flood on top of the sediment layers, on top of the bedrock, which is not the Cenozoic, by the way. So, anyways, to me, it's a cut and dry case that the Earth had to have, regardless of whether or not you think it's possible, it had to have happened because if if you break up the continents and they move north, that means they hadn't been connected at the South Pole um, before the breakup, right? Anyways, so you know, I've been around many years thinking about this. I've been anti-evolutionist since I was a kid. I've been annoyed with evolution teaching their monkey stories ever since I was a kid, and I never had a chance to respond. All I could do was yell at the book right in front of me. But I'm not going to reach. I'm not going to reach. My message is not going to reach anybody by yelling at the book. So now that I do have a chance to respond to these people writing the books or influencing people in their beliefs, we just call them out. We have to call them out every every time they even mention apes and monkeys and as being common ancestors. Every single time we have to call them out and say, wait a minute, that's not true. That's not verified science. There's no possible way that could ever happen. Why are you teaching this as science when it's not science? It's not science. Why are you wasting time in school teaching nonsense when you could be teaching known human history of all the ancient civilizations that we're descended from? You're Instead of using the time to teach the truth, you're using the time to teach nonsense and pseudoscience, anti-science. So, what's wrong? We have to call them out every single time they put up a video, every single time they put something out there. We got to be on them, calling them out, and say, "What's this nonsense? This is stupidity." You got to prove it before you claim it, before you teach it to kids. Regardless what school it is. It's just so annoying. I've been annoyed since I was a kid. Since I was a kid, 17 years old in school and younger, I've been annoyed with these people. And there was nothing I could do. Now I can do something about it. We need to do something about it. The great thing about the internet is it gives this platform to regular folks. It gives feedback mechanisms because they live in their ivory towers and bubbles and they don't even know what's going on. Why do some Christians believe we're related to apes? That really puzzles me. Yeah, it's because they have to believe it. Because if they don't believe that we came from monkeys, then they have to believe in a creator. And they don't want to believe in a creator, so they have to make up this story, and a lot of Christians fall for it. They say, "Oh, it's science. There's science." It's not. It's not science at all. It's not any bit of science. The reason they teach the pseudoscience is to hide God. They're just a God-hating deceivers, yeah. And and Christians fall for it all the time. Hugh Ross, of course, his theology is everywhere, and William Lane Craig, his theology is everywhere too, because of this pseudoscience, this nonsense that's not even science that they believe in millions of years. So it makes them look bad. It makes us look bad. And if we all get on the same page and learn known human history, that we're all descended from the 16 grandsons of Noah that became the 16 ancient civilizations all around the world that everybody knows about, because there is no other human history. And we have all their haplogroups. We have the haplogroups of every lineage there is. And they're all from one of the 16 grandsons of Noah. And there's a whole, it's interesting. When you follow all the histories of everyone that went everywhere, it's very interesting because it all fits perfectly. But it has to fit perfectly. If it doesn't fit perfectly, it's not right. Okay, because they're stupid. I try not to call them stupid. I mean, I question their IQ and their intelligence and everything, but I try to not call them stupid because stupid is like slapping somebody in the face. Hey, stupid. And because the Bible says not to call anybody a fool, or it's the spirit when you talk to somebody, you try not to call them something that's like slapping them in the face. Some of God's kids drive me crazy. Yeah, yeah. See, people just swallow the lies they were told from people in positions of authority. Yeah, and that's what we have to do. That's why we have to call them out, because they're supposed to know what they're talking about, and they don't. That's why I call them out on all these different things in science, is because they don't know what they're talking about. Because if they did know what they're talking about, they wouldn't be talking millions of years. Because the timeline problem is not a problem when the measures of distance are greatly expanded and the rate of time is greatly increased. That's why we can see distant starlight within the 6,000 year history that we have, because it actually reaches us, because it can, because it does, because there's no between here and the next galaxy that we're seeing, there's no matter to slow down time or to contract distance. That's why we can see them. Otherwise, how in the world could? And they're not actually as far, but they are far, but not actually as far as what they think. But that's how we can see them. Anyways, see, people just swallow lies. Yep, professing them to be smart, they become fools. Romans chapter 1. So yeah, so this, I mean, it explains everything. This breakup of the continents that I'm talking about after the global flood that I was trying to ask T Rock about. Explains everything. It explains the frozen animals up in the Arctic region, both in the North America and Siberia. It explains the tsunamis. They have known huge tsunami events up in Europe, and what else buried everything up in Siberia and North America and frozen. Why did they get frozen? Why were they buried? No, it's because if you're pushing if the continents are moving north, that means the sea level is going to rise up in the north, and it's going to inundate the land. You're going to have an incursion, what they call it, a transgression, an incursion. You're going to have an incursion onto the land, and it's going to be a disastrous tsunami burying everything that's there, and that's exactly what happened. Besides the fact that there's many animals in South America that correspond to animals in Africa, and it's the same animal, just obviously a little different because of the different environment. but it's the same animal. Leopards and jaguar, honey badgers and greater grisons, tapirs and tapirs and tapirs, and possums and possums and possums. It explains how everything got to where it was. How did the kangaroos get to Australia? It's because everything was connected at the South Pole for 100 years. They made it. All the animals made it to South America, and no people were made it to South America. Why? Because they were building the Tower of Babel until the breakup of the continents. And that's when they started to disperse and move around, was after the breakup of the continents. And the word Peleg, which means divided, came to mean as or where the waters flow between the continents. I mean, there's so much evidence, and especially at the solid evidence. If you want the solid evidence to address, it's the sediment layers with the fossils in them that line up. The sediments line up, the fossils in those sediments line up, the glacial striations match from when they were connected at the South Pole. How in the world are you going to have glacial striations going from south to north in India or Australia or South America? It's because they were connected to the South Pole at the time that there were glaciers for 100 years after the global flood, which is another thing with the heat problem. They keep talking about the heat problem. When the global flood happened, the Earth was exposed to outer space, much more so than before, so that things at the poles froze. But while it was still connected to the South Pole, the farther north you were, the better the climate was for all these animals, the mammoths and lions, the bears, the elk or whatever. That's the better the climate was. And then when it broke apart, obviously, I don't know how fast it moved. Maybe 500 or so miles an hour or more or less. But they continents just moved right north. Every one of them, once it broke apart, the centrifugal force of the spinning Earth made everything move north. South America, America went north. You could see it in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. As it moved north, it separated. Everything moved north, and as they moved north, they separated. And it's just so obvious. Anyway, I'm getting off on a rant here. See, Psalm of David: the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They've done abominable works. There's none that doeth good. And the earth divided in the time of Peleg. Yeah, and it does say the earth was divided. It doesn't say the people were divided, actually. But you have to have hard evidence for that, and I got hard evidence to back it up. To Eber were born the sons. One was named Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. Must have been some incredible catastrophe to make the whole earth divide in the days of Peleg. What was it? Well, since everything was at the South Pole, it was slightly to one side of the South Pole because it wasn't actually over the South Pole. It was like to one side but connected to the South Pole, plus the accumulation of the snow, somebody pointed out to me. And when the earth turned, it was like oblong. Whenever you pour cement, you have two guarantees. One, nobody's going to steal it. The other one, it's going to crack. And when the sediment layers were deposited, there's one guarantee it's going to happen. It's going to crack and break apart. And the centrifugal force itself is enough to send them north, except there could have been another catastrophe, another asteroid or something, because the lifespan of people was cut in half a second time since the global flood. Because when the global flood happened the first time, life was cut in half from almost 1,000 years to almost 500 years. But it was still almost 500 years, right? People born after the flood were still living almost 500 years until the days of Peleg, and you can see that it was cut in half a second time. Now, people since Peleg, they're only living to 250 years old, which is, or even less than 250 years old, which is cut in half a second time from 500. So it's cut in half from 1,000 to 500 to 250 years old, and then it just gradually went down from there. But there's an absolute difference that occurred, a change that occurred. Maybe it was another asteroid. Maybe it was the same thing that caused the global flood in the first place. It just came around again and hit us again or whatever. Uh, but it cut the lifespan in half a second time. And you can see it in the ages of the patriarchs. Because ever since Peleg didn't live 250 years. None of his descendants did. And it all went down after that. So it's circumstantial evidence, but it is evidence, you know. And you're right, it had to have been something catastrophic, which could have been the same thing that caused the global flood, for all I know. You know. See, there in the beginning, God created the heaven, singular, and the earth means dry land. Well, it was water before dry land appeared on the first day. The earth was covered with water. The The earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of God moved across the surface of the waters. And he said, "Let there be light." Then let land appeared, and land appeared out of the water. Land came up out of the water, and that's the initial world or earth that people lived on before the flood. Barry Setterfield thinks it was a massive asteroid. It could have been, but it could have hit us twice. Or because it's not just one asteroid. Sometimes it's like a whole bunch of different asteroids and pieces and everything. Anyways, but yeah, things have settled down since then. Obviously, it only moved up so far, and in the process, well, I don't want to get into Atlantis, but I think Atlantis might have been the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, at least part of it sticking out, but which subsequently sank back down. But people were living on it at the time, so I'm guessing. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of evidence for that, but it's a possibility. I mean, the Azores are still sticking out at the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. That's where the Azores are. They're still sticking out, and they go way thousands of feet up in the air. In fact, they go higher up in the air than what the entire Amazon basin is. The Azores are so far up. There's one that goes way up into the clouds. They call it Pico because it's a point that goes way up in the clouds, and that's Portuguese. But the Azores are still there on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. But for what it's worth, that might have sank down. Anyway, so the Bible and history, science, spiritual book of wisdom. The Bible's real history and real science book, spiritual book of wisdom. Yeah, I agree with that. It's every kind of knowledge that as a matter of fact, it's the spirit of wisdom, spirit of understanding, spirit of counsel, spirit of strength, spirit of knowledge, and the spirit of the fear of the Lord, which could be understood as uh, a good expectation. So, fear of the Lord means the Lord is going to do something. That's the fear of the Lord. So, we as believers know the Lord is going to do good. There's a verse in the Bible that says they will fear for all the good that the Lord has done. Anyways, I guess that's a good breaking off point here from the video. Um, I just thought maybe if I explained a little bit about myself, maybe people would want to listen to me more, or at least consider, at least like consider, let it sink in and say yes, no, whatever. But you know, we can't. I mean, we can't be the ones to be censoring other people. We can't be censoring ourselves. We have to listen. The Bible says to let everyone speak. It's a Bible verse. Let everyone have their turn. Let everyone speak. Give everybody a chance to speak, and then let others pass judgment or respond to what he says. We can't have censorship among us because that's a bad example. It's a bad example to the skeptics and atheists. Yep. Spirit of discernment, hallelujah, fear the Lord, reverence of the Lord God. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody participating. God bless everybody. Take care and stay close to the truth. The truth will guide us in every way. Absolutely.